know too much about lucid dreaming. Do you lucid dream?
I do. I'm actually a very big dreamer. Um, yeah, I dream every night.
Oh,
I'm a big dreamer every night. If I don't dream, it's actually unusual. I've been dreaming since I was a kid, actually.
okay.
Um, and talking about sort of energy healing, meditation, and on that note, something happened to me yesterday. I was like, oh, I'm going to ask Isabel about that tomorrow. Maybe it'll be good to ask on the show. And it is kind of related. So, welcome to Motherland. Let's just see what happens.
Oh, yes. Welcome to Motherland.
Yeah. So here we are. Isabel and I are here. We're both drinking our coffee.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. I'm sick. I'm trying to like my voice and I'm trying.
Yeah. So we're talking today about lucid dreaming, energy healing, and meditation. I think all elements of some folks practice. And I was just telling Isabel before we clicked record that I'm a big dreamer and that I have always been a big dreamer. But yesterday, I wanted to ask you, Isabel. So yesterday I had just finished meditation. And I have lots of different types of meditation that I do, and we'll get into that in just a second. But I needed your expert opinion on this. So I was finishing my sit, and I felt and saw like a big red light, like behind me. And when I say behind me, I mean almost inside my head behind me. And it kind of felt like flames. And that has never happened to me before. And I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about that.
Interesting. At first, right now, when you said it, I was like thinking, okay, you saw your spirit guides. But then afterwards, when you were explaining it right now, I was like kind of tapping in and looking at it. And I kind of think what you felt was like, hold on, let me see. Yeah, it wasn't your spirit guides. That's what I was just checking. And I think what you saw was energy, or what some would say is your Kundalini energy. And I think that's what you tapped into. So yeah, that's.
I have a lot going on emotionally right now. Could that be? I have a lot of stuff that got stirred up over the past week or so. So maybe that's what.
There's been a lot collectively that people are just getting stirred up around emotions, and like there's a lot of emotional release going on. I feel like that's the story of everything, though. I feel like everything, I'm always like, oh, emotional release, oh, purge, oh, let go. But there really has been a lot emotionally that people are getting stirred up on. I mean, me included. I mean, that's honestly like me included.
Yeah, yeah. And when I first got into, well, I've been into meditation a couple of times, and I'd love to know when you got into meditation too, and how you use it in your own practice. I first started to investigate meditation and even travel when I was in high school. I think I might have mentioned this in our first episode, but a friend of mine in high school, we were really into the idea of astral projection, and I don't even know how we heard about it, but I remember the two of us on her bed in her room, practicing and trying. And then we would try ourselves to see like how we could learn how to travel. And I don't remember having any experiences in high school, but I remember when I started working at a bookstore, I got a book called Soul Traveler, which gave me techniques how to do it. And then I realized I'd already been doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really transformative. And I found that a meditation practice could help me do that more easily when I wanted to do it. It would happen sort of on its own and I couldn't control it. And then through having a steady practice, I learned how to actually control it.
That's so weird. I'm like thinking right now, listening to you, I'm like, who the heck did you and Mel hang out with? Mel talks about how her friends were all mediums, and you're talking about like in high school, I was astro traveling. I was like, I was not doing any of that. If
You
I was doing
know,
any kind of out of body traveling, it was not because of choice.
it's,
Well, it kind of was because of choice, but you know what I mean.
yeah, no, it's it's funny, and I'm not even friends with her anymore, which is a whole nother story. But
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't even remember. And she was like the only one. No, she was, yeah, she was the only one I talked about that with. But my best friend in high school, um, she smoked weed and she was a deadhead, and so there was always, an element of mysticism or hippie vibes around me in high school. But the astral thing was really interesting, and I may have been, and I'm just sort of feeling this right now. I may have gotten interested in it because of things that happened to me when I was a kid,
Mm,
when I had visits, from guides, and I think my ancestors when I was a kid.
yeah.
So I've like I said, I think I've always been kind of looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit before we talk about like some of these things. And I tell you my practice. It's like we're talking about, because I don't think everybody understands exactly what is astral traveling.
Yes.
Okay, so first off, when Oneika mentions astral traveling, it's a separation of your consciousness from your physical body. And this is where people say, like, oh my gosh, like I woke up so tired, and it was like, yeah, I was doing work. And it's oftentimes when your body is traveling to different realms or dimensions. And so you're lifting out and you're traveling around while you are sleeping. So your consciousness is not attached to your physical body. And when you astral traveling, you may feel like you're flying, you may feel like you're floating. You can visit real places, you can visit dimensions, you can visit, like I said, places on Earth. And it's a time that people are they say there's a time where you can either gain insight or have these big experiences. Sometimes you remember it, sometimes you don't. Um, yeah, I don't know. Is there anything you want to say about astral traveling?
Um, yeah, I find that astral travel was fun for me when I was younger, so I didn't really look to get anything from it. It was just like an adventure I
Yeah.
could have. I was like, "Oh, I'm flying and, going to different places, and isn't this cool?" And then when I got older and realized I was still doing it, I wanted to test it. I remember testing it one night.
Hmm.
This is almost 10 years ago. It's probably right when I started being a yoga teacher, maybe less than that. Anyway, the point is that I tested it, and I would know that I could definitely travel even if I didn't want to, if I was very tired. And I think it's because my body was very relaxed, so I knew I could get myself in a state. My body would even tingle on certain nights. And I remember this even before I started sort of even on my spiritual path, when I was working a lot, and there would be times I would hit the pillow and I would know, like, oh God, this is going to happen tonight because I'm just so tired. Sometimes I would welcome it, and sometimes I would get frustrated because I knew
Interesting.
I didn't know how to control it, until I read a book called Soul Traveler by this guy who worked for NASA. And he used to travel all the time. And the way he would bring himself back is that he would wiggle his index finger, would be a way to bring his soul back into his body. And I use that technique if I felt like I was too far, I was ready to come back. I would wiggle my finger, and I've even had partners notice when I'm wiggling my finger in the middle of the night to come back.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Huh, I wonder what like our listeners' experiences with astral traveling is. I'd be interested to find out. The other one I want to say really quick before we go back into this is Kundalini, because we talked really quick about Kundalini, and we'll
Hmm.
talk more about both of these things. Well, it's part of the topic, but you'd probably explain Kundalini really well because you do yoga.
Yeah, I'm not too. I'll tell you what I know, and fill in any
Yeah,
blanks, because I haven't studied it in depth. But Kundalini is, they said it's like a spiral, almost a snake shape of energy that
like a
starts.
spring.
Yeah, that starts at the base of the spine. And it can be activated, which can be helpful for us to gain wisdom or insight.
Mm-hmm.
And in yoga, you'll hear some people talk about a Kundalini awakening, where they do certain practices intentionally to awaken their Kundalini. There are also times that people have a traumatic event, or not, it doesn't even have to be a big event, an emotional event that sort of releases their Kundalini energy, or an experience in their life that's taking them to another place, and then their Kundalini energy gets woken up. And there can be symptoms when you're having a Kundalini experience. And I've read that they can be anything like from headaches to a sense of dizziness, to a sense of even wanting to be distant from certain places or things that don't feel in alignment with you anymore. You may even find yourself drawn to a different kind of diet to take care of yourself, or gaining insights that you don't even know where they're coming from. So there's lots of ways that this energy is said to awaken inside you. I don't think I've ever had a Kundalini
Yes, you have.
awakening.
I think the thing is that, like, yes, you have, because here's the thing. There really isn't any big, I mean, some people have a big aha moment. My Kundalini was awakened. Some don't. I never had a huge moment where I was like, my Kundalini is awakened, right? Your Kundalini energy is said to be dormant, and it's dormant until, let's say, you have this spiritual awakening of some kind. And some spiritual awakenings are really profound, and some are not. And it's okay either way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's just the energy that is, like you said, like a snake. It's always represented in a snake, but you can also say a spring that's like tightly
Mm-hmm.
coiled up. So
Oh, I
when you
like
go
that.
through when you go through an awakening, right, like, or your Kundalini awakens, that spring starts separating, right? It gets a little bit looser, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when it becomes looser, then what happens is that power, that creativity, that energy source starts getting released. And that's where you're harmonizing with yourself spiritually, but also all of your, your chakras, they kind of start activating, and people go through this. But there's a lot of different practices. Like you said, you could do it through meditation, you could do it through yoga, you could just do it through awareness and focus, right? So I don't think that everyone's quote awakening is necessarily the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're on a spiritual journey and you've had a spiritual awakening of some kind, then you
Mm-hmm.
definitely have had your Kundalini awakened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think it's like, oh, I don't think I have had it. Like, yes, we have. You just don't need to do some deep yoga practice or meditation
Okay.
practice at all times to activate and like move it. It's just a way of describing the energy that is moving through your chakras, through your spine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a
So,
lot of sense.
yeah.
So I, where do I want to start? So when I'll talk about meditation a little bit, because there's lots of different kinds of meditation.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for us to talk about too. Like, I think some people hear the word meditation and they think of like Buddha on the mountaintop.
Right.
And I like to tell folks that that is not meditation. It might be for some people who want to take themselves out of society and, renunciate the world and go into a cave, but that doesn't have to be meditation. Meditation is really defined as like concentration on something. So the focus could be on your breath. It could be on an item like a candle flame. There's different kinds of meditations that can give you different results. And I think that's really important too. I think when it comes to meditation, consistency is important. I think a lot of people want to do, I used to have this happen a lot at Rikers. People would come, find out I'm, the meditation coach, and they all want to come and wait. Everybody wants to wake up their third eye, right? Like everybody's like, help me wake up my third eye. I'm like, okay, well, let's just talk about a basic meditation practice. And everybody would like roll their eyes because nobody wants to do that part, right? Nobody wants to do the consistent, boring, mundane work of having a consistent practice to sort of open yourself up. But I think that's what you have to do. You have to learn how to be with yourself every day, to notice what's happening in your body so you can be alert to when changes are happening. And so I would have meditations where I could travel. I could have meditations where I'm just concentrating. I could have meditations where I'm just paying attention to the present. So there's lots of different ways to sit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things I always talk about. I'm like, I think there's enough books out there that if somebody really, or even like Google searches, like, how do I
Yeah.
meditate? And I think that's one of the things with meditation I was trying to tell people. And I say this a lot with any rituals or anything that people do. It's like a form of just listening to yourself and what you need at that time. But I think it varies, right? So I think for one, if you're a listener and you're like, I've never meditated, it's like definitely like you don't need to go into this practice with, I need to sit with an hour or I don't even 20 minutes. Like if you can sit with 5 or 10, like that is fine. I don't look at so much as it's like a form of me concentrating. This is me. I look at
Mm-hmm.
it as more as it's just a time for me to have an awareness within myself and
Mm-hmm.
within my body, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's by breathing or even if that's by movement.
Yep.
I don't feel that meditation necessarily has to be a sitting practice. I always tell
Nope.
people, I'm like, if you want to go and have a walk and your intention is just to have that awareness within yourself while you're walking or even while you're working out, if that's what it is, any type of movement, right? Yoga itself can be a meditative practice. It's like, then go and do that. But I think that a lot of people get scared away from meditation because they think it's this way of completely emptying your mind altogether. And in order to do that, you have to sit for so long. And then people don't want to do it because then they're really hard on themselves because they're like, how do I stop the thoughts, right? How do
Right.
I stop all these ways that are coming in? Therefore, I must be doing it wrong because my thoughts keep coming. If your
Yeah.
thoughts keep coming, your brain is working, guys. Like that's your brain's process. But I think it's a part of like we can break this down a little bit more, but like I think it's just a part of like awareness. I always tell people like let your thought come, don't fight it, let the thought come. I kind of imagine a little treasure box and I'm always like, okay, my thought can go into there and I'll get to it later. Like just float into the
Yep.
box, I'll get to it later. But don't fight the thought or else it's gonna just you're gonna keep putting that energy towards it. But yeah, it doesn't require necessarily a long period of time.
No,
That
no, it
escapes from
doesn't.
a
And I
reality.
think,
Yeah.
as somebody who's like formally studied meditation,
Yeah,
there's different ways there are all
exactly.
different kinds. And I think that's important that it doesn't have to be one way. There are forms of
I don't think it
meditation.
does. I think it's important that
Um,
some days it might be this, some days it might
yeah,
be that, but taking the opportunity to ask yourself, what's my practice need to look like today?
exactly. And I think that that's important. And, there's a form of meditation that's called Zazen meditation or Zazen. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And that's a Zen meditation. So if you're learning a particular type of meditation, there's a particular way to do it. But
Yeah.
if we're just talking about your meditation practice of being in the present moment, there are so many ways to do that. And I think that's why it's important to also talk about the fact, there's being mindful and then there's meditation practices. And, I'm a meditation teacher and I don't do a sitting practice every day. And I am perfectly willing to admit that that
So glad
happens.
you said that. Yeah,
Yeah. And,
I'm the same
and
for
I think
me.
it's important to say I don't sit every day. And here's the thing. I used to sit every day and it was for the wrong reasons. I sat every day because I wanted to say I sat every day and that's bullshit. I
Yeah,
wanted so I could be a good meditator, so I could be a good teacher. And that's judgment. And the reality is I was doing that for some outside purpose and outside validation rather than coming to the practice with intention, love, and discipline for myself
right.
and my own journey. And the minute I changed that attitude and became really aware of what my practice is supposed to be for me, I come to my practice lovingly with commitment whenever I do it. So sometimes my practice is simply standing in the kitchen and being mindful with the way I'm washing dishes. Sometimes it's the way that I take a shower in the morning.
Perfect.
Sometimes I do sit for 3 hours. Sometimes I will go on a retreat and be
Right.
quiet for a week. But that's why I've been posting these like mindful minutes because you could find mindfulness in an exhale.
All right.
Just
I posted one of
breathe
those yesterday too.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about making friends with your mind. It's
Oh,
not about emptying your mind and
yeah.
I have a very active mind. Turning it off would mean that I'm dead. So instead, why don't I pay attention to how my mind is working
Right.
and make friends with it? And that I think is when we can gain really incredible insights.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you said that. Like it's making friends with your mind. You asked me, which I'll tell you when I started meditating, but when did you start meditating?
I think seriously, I started meditating about 10 or 12 years ago. I started to really commit to it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I think I formally called myself a teacher, a meditation teacher, about 5 or 6 years ago. I felt comfortable saying that I'm a meditation teacher. And that's just my own bullshit because I felt like I need to be studied and scholarly and feel like I could say I'm a teacher. That's my own thing. That's another story.
I've never studied any type of meditation teaching, but I do lead meditations very frequently, and I lead more of a guided meditation. So I do that quite frequently. And plus, it's part of my coaching.
Yeah. So there's meditations too that are guided, or meditations that are visualizations that can be really powerful. But when did you start to practice?
Oh my gosh, I have a really weird story. I've been practicing. I would say now I'm pretty consistent. Obviously, I say obviously, but that's such a stupid thing to say. But I'm consistent now, but I started my practice probably when I was in high school. I think, if I remember, so my dad studied MMA before MMA was a thing. This is back in like the late 80s. And he studied, or maybe even earlier, so probably late 70s. He studied MMA growing up. So growing up, my parents were divorced, but I have like very random memories of my dad doing like Tai Chi and stretching and just doing all of his martial art moves. So I remember when I was a child, I might have been like 9 or 10. It's a weird memory, and it's funny because I don't even think he remembers this. He had this really big window that overlooked. It was on an area in San Diego that it was kind of like a mountaintop, and it overlooks. He had this really big window, and he was doing his morning Tai Chi movements, which he's so proud that he still does today. And so I remember looking at him and watching him going, "What are you doing?" And I literally remember, and it's so funny because he's like, "I don't remember that." And I'm like, was it a dream or did it really happen? Like, I'm pretty sure it happened. And he was like, "Why don't you come and meditate with me?" And so I was like, okay. So I remember sitting next to him on this window and him just telling me to focus on my breath. That's all. He didn't have, I mean, to me, it's like, my dad, that's exactly his instructions. Focus on your breath. No other instructions.
Yeah.
So I remember being like 9 and just focusing on my breathing. Like he kind of said, like, really focus on your inhale. And then when you exhale, I remember him telling me, like, just focus on like slow exhaling.
Yep.
So as I got older in high school, I remember dealing with like a lot of stress and just a lot of things. I think I was going down a really kind of weird path. And I remember meditation. I didn't know what to do, so I put classical music on. And so I would just listen to classical music while breathing. And so the classical music, I would imagine like a path or like a road, and as I was exhaling with the music. And that's what I practiced in high school. Wow. And I remember hiding it because my mom was like super Christian, and I was like, am I going to get in trouble for this? I didn't know. So I remember hiding my meditation practice. And then when I got older, I got back into it. And I did the same thing again, but this time I remember following Deepak Chopra's. He would have these little short meditations where he would, you would sign up and do the challenge, and they were free. He might still do them, like they're free challenges. And it was such a really good way for me to restart again, because the challenges were only like really small time frame of your day to kind of understand your practice and like practice breathing. And that's where I started. And then I started attending like guided meditations regularly.
And then, the meditation is a part of so many indigenous traditions, right? Like you can find meditation in Christianity, you can find meditation in in Buddhism and in Hinduism and in a lot of traditions. And this idea of even like vision quests and sort of concentrating to gain insight is a really powerful experience. I think the first time I felt this idea of like being in a state, a flow state, was when I learned how to play tennis. And when I would have these moments, like I was, playing with my dad, and I got into like that zone place where you're kind of just one with the ball. And I remember this feeling in my body, like there was nothing else going on but just me and the tennis ball. Or I would feel that with swimming too, like just finding myself doing freestyle and practice, that sense of just my arm reaching up and going to the water, and then this just rhythm and this connection with everything around me was really powerful, but I didn't have a name for it. Um, and the feeling was really powerful.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where it started.
Yeah, who knows? But I
Yeah.
think that's why I think, everybody has their whole different way of looking at it. It's just finding what works for you. And I
Mhm.
think that's where I always know that people like laugh at it, right? And they're like, which
Mhm.
I love alms, but still, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like they think like chanting and meditation has to be this certain way, but
Yep.
no.
And I will do chanting sometimes too, right? I will do different kinds of meditation. Chanting or japa meditation is when you're doing a meditation and you repeat a phrase over and over again out loud, and it can stimulate, your vagus nerve,
Right.
and can really get you in touch with yourself and everything that's happening around you when you sort of tap into that universal vibration of Om, right? Om is said to be the sound of the universe. So when we say it, um, we can connect with it. And in yoga classes, you hear all these teachers always talking about Om this and Om that, and like doing 3 ohms before at the end of class. But the ohms that I was taught was actually 3 ohms. There is one Om that's supposed to be for yourself, one Om that's supposed to be for all things, and then one Om that's supposed to be for the universe. So it's this idea of connection, because our spirituality should be connecting us with everything and everyone, and not sort of just to be done in a vacuum, which I think is very important for my own practice.
Yeah. Okay, so when we first signed on, you said you were going to do lucid dreaming. When you
Mm-hmm.
said lucid dreaming, were you meaning astral traveling?
No, so lucid dreaming is when you are having a dream and you recognize that you are dreaming in the moment. So you are lucid of the fact that you're dreaming. So I have done travel. So I am aware of when I'm always lucid when I travel. I know I'm traveling.
Uh,
But I have also just been in the middle of a dream where I'm not traveling and it's just a dream, and I recognize, oh, this is a dream. And I will go with it, or it's a dream and I don't like what's happening, so I'm going to wake myself up.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because I know we talked about both of them.
Yeah.
Um, I know, like, I personally don't like astro traveling. Like, I don't like
Mhm.
it. It wasn't
Mhm.
something that I necessarily wanted to do. So,
Mhm.
like, I've worked really hard in, like, it's not even saying working really hard because people are like, well, how do I stop it? And I always like set the intentions. Like, I was like,
Mhm.
I literally had to talk with my spirit guides, and I was like, no, if you
Mhm.
want to deliver me a message, like, you're not going to do it. You're not going to make me leave my body. Like, any
Mhm.
messages, I have to stay in my body to be delivered. And like, therefore, I don't really astral travel anymore.
Mhm.
I wasn't big on it. That's just my own take on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, people are always, which I'm always like, I think I think that astral traveling to me has become a very weird practice of spirituality where people think it's spirituality.
Yes.
Like, that's where I don't like talking too much about it, because people are like, oh, do you astral travel? Like, how can you astral travel? And I'm like, that's not spirituality, because you can freaking astral travel. Anyone can astral travel, and you don't have to be spiritual to do it. And more likely than not, majority of people are already doing it and you don't know it, or you don't understand it. And it's like, and I don't think it's a mark of spirituality. And so I'm kind of weird talking about it, because I'm like, I don't even like encouraging it necessarily, because I'm
Mhm.
like, it doesn't make you more spiritual because you.
No, it's just the thing that happens. I think it's just a thing that happens. Like I had even told you, like when I first started doing it, it was just fun. It was just something I did. It wasn't like a mark of my spirituality. It was just a thing that I could do, and it was entertaining.
Yeah.
Um, there have been times talking about meditation, and I still don't understand this, but I'll just share these experiences anyway. There are times when I'm sitting in meditation and I end up going somewhere and I don't like it. And so I sort of have to ground myself. But there are times when I'm sitting in a meditation and I am taken to a place, and sometimes I'm on a street corner somewhere and there's like a traffic light, or there's a person that I see. And I don't know why that happens, but like there like I'll tell you, like one time I was just meditating, and suddenly I realized that I was in somebody's bed, but I was inside a person who was breaking up with his girlfriend. And
Yes, I've had experiences like that, and I
yeah,
really believe
what
these
is
are
that?
parallel lives.
So, see, I'm so glad that I know you, Isabel. So I did this meditation. This has happened a few times.
Yeah.
But this one specifically, it was the first time and it freaked me out. So I'm doing this meditation. Suddenly, I'm in this bed and I'm under the sheets. And I knew it wasn't my imagination because I didn't recognize these sheets. It wasn't something I was drawing from anything. I'm like, what are these sheets? And I was in a room and sunlight was coming in and I was inside a
And it was
guy's
very much
body.
you. Like you're like,
Yes,
this is me, but this isn't me.
but
Yeah.
isn't me. But I was this
Yeah.
guy. I was this white guy. I was this white guy, and I know I had brown hair, and there was a woman with me, and I was breaking up with her. And I remember thinking, man, this is messed up because they just had sex. Like, it was really weird. I was like, this isn't cool. Why would you do this? And she got really upset, and he was trying to apologize. And then the sheet gets thrown off because she stormed out. And I felt myself sit up thinking that wasn't really cool. I don't know why I did that. And I remember standing up and walking to the window and looking outside of the window and watching traffic go by. And then I remember thinking, as that's happening, what is going on? And
Right.
I like just opened my eyes because I was really freaked out.
That's so crazy. I had this one where I don't remember anymore because it was quite a while ago if I was meditating or not, but I remember I was walking down, I want to say it was almost like a dream. So I know it's astral projection because the way it was. But all of a sudden I walked out of a building into a busy street, and I swear it was either San Francisco or New York because there was just
Mm-hmm.
people walking all over. And I just remember going like, where am I going? Like I remember thinking that like in the body going like, where am I going? And I knew I was going somewhere. Like I was very
Mm-hmm.
distinct, and there was people that I would like recognize as I was walking. So like they would make contact and I would make contact. But I knew like this isn't my body. This is really weird. Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
want to say they were on their way to church. I want
Mm-hmm.
to say they were walking to like a church building or church something. And then what was weird is I had two experiences in the same body. The next one was I one day was there at their house, and I remember like great big doors. So whoever it is has money, and they're married. And I remember opening up the door because my husband was standing next to me, opening up the door, and I was like, hey, get the dogs, because I had like two dogs. And I just remember opening up these doors and going like this isn't my body. Like, what am I looking at? This isn't my body. But everything was so clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything was so clear that I was like, I can see the detail of the doors. I can see like the dogs. I could see like I knew when I was walking down the street that it was daylight. Like everything was so clear that I had to sit with it for a while because it kind of freaked me out. And I was like, oh, that wasn't like I was like literally the guys were like, you just glimpsed into a parallel life. Like that's what you glimpsed into. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Which I also find interesting that I was somewhere in the city because I love the city. Like I
Uh-huh.
live in like the suburbs, but I love the city. Like my heart is like New York, San Francisco. I love the city. And so I find it really interesting that my parallel life is somewhere in some
Yeah.
city at some time frame. But yeah, that was definitely like a parallel life that was occurring in that. I know people are like, we're throwing around these terms that people are going to be like, what the hell are you guys even talking about a parallel life? So
So yeah. Tell so yours happened when you were asleep. With me, this
I
also
don't remember. Like it was a while ago. I can't remember if I
okay.
was like asleep or awake. I
Yeah.
was meditating. I
Yeah.
can't remember because it was so long ago, and I
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
since.
Um, it can happen with it happens with me mostly when I'm awake.
Uh-huh.
And I would have experiences at Rikers quite a bit that I never really talked
Wow.
about. I never talked about because I didn't really know who to talk to, and I
Uh-huh.
didn't want to obviously talk to anybody at work because I thought, oh, people are going to think I've lost my mind. But there are times I would sit with folks and be doing a meditation, and I would be almost positive that I was seeing something
Mm-hmm.
that was a part of them. Like there were times I would do meditation. I would actually just have to squeeze my fist really tight because the minute that I would close my eyes with some people, I was off somewhere, and I was
Right.
like, it got it was really tough and really hard to
Interesting.
handle.
It's interesting you like to leave your body all the time.
Yeah, and I'm always and it's funny, and it's funny because I would have to always hold myself back, like, don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just stay here.
Yeah.
There's times too, I think I told you and Mel this one time, this used to happen quite a bit as well, that with certain folks that I was sitting with, this need to pass out would come over me.
Like, she's overwhelming.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the same. My ex-father-in-law, anytime I was around him, I'd pass out. And for years, I mean, this was before I understood energy. And I was like, why? Like, I'm never this tired. I literally would get so tired. I could not keep my eyes open. Like, I just couldn't. And my body would just like, I gotta take a nap. And they were like, gosh, you're always so exhausted. I figured out later, I was like, oh, it's his energy. His energy is so heavy and thick. But yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But some people don't believe in parallel life. Some people don't think it's real. Like, a lot of people don't think that this is a real thing. So a lot of people have different, I don't know. There's a lot of different takes on it.
There's a really interesting episode of a podcast. I think it's a Radio Lab episode. It's on NPR, where Neil deGrasse Tyson, the physicist, talks about this theoretical concept where everything that is happening with us is happening somewhere else, someplace else, almost exactly the same with something slightly different.
Yeah.
And that this is, this is what quantum physics talks about.
Yeah.
And there's some people who say it's philosophical and theoretical, and some people who believe that it's real. And I believe that it's real. I know that I've had experiences where I've been somewhere and I have been with other people and I've had experiences happen. And I know it's not my imagination, because I can't make up things that I don't know.
Here's my thought process. If people are listening to this and they're like, we don't really know if we believe this, but you guys might be listening to this and still believe in the sense that we talked last week, like your higher self, different dimensions, different realms. Like, it's still in the same line of context. Like, it's no different. So if you can believe in different dimensions and realms, which I don't really believe in different dimensions, that's a whole different talk. I don't believe in that. I don't like when people are like, oh, that's a different dimension or that's a different realm. And I'm like, I don't really like the separation aspect of things. But anyways, it's like, if you can believe in those things, then why can you not look at parallel lives as the same exact thing? Because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think of it as like timelines?
No, I think timelines, I like these questions because it makes me like tap into spirit and listen, because I can hear.
Yeah. So
timelines are different than dimensions and realms. They're not the same. I can see what you're asking. Do I think parallel lives the same as timelines? Yes. Yes. The answer is yes on that one.
Yeah.
You just tapped into a different version of you on a timeline.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Because I know, and I think this goes to when like you meet someone and you know that you've met them before, or you know that you know them somewhere else.
Yeah, and like you guys have twin flames and soulmates, so like why can you not? Yeah, exactly.
Yes. We've done this before. This has happened before. This is happening somewhere else right now.
Right. Yeah. If you guys can do like the sense that, I like this thought process. Okay, we're talking about meditation. We talked about astral traveling, and we've talked about all these things. And so you have to understand that either way of astral traveling, meditation, your consciousness is separating from your physical mind or your physical body in some sense. And so if you're looking at the sense of your parallel lives, like, it's the same idea that your consciousness can live in other aspects. And you have to understand that as you leave this physical body, so let's talk about like you living in the spirit realm, you have the ability to multiply in a sense that I want to try my life in different experiences at the same time. So like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, why wouldn't you make the choice of, okay, wait, I have 5 different ways I can play with my life right now. Like, Absolutely. If you have 5 different ways to live your life at one time and take that growth of your consciousness, like why wouldn't you take the growth of your consciousness? So it's like, it's energy. That's the whole thing that you have to understand. Like energy, we put energy in our limited sense of mind and thinking that this is the body and this is the only body I can live in. Like I can only live in this physical body. And they're like, no, absolutely not. Your energy is very much, which it's kind of funny because it flows into the whole energy healing concept we were going to talk about. Your energy is so much bigger. Like where energy is contained in our, in you, my energy is contained in you. My energy is contained in the plants. My energy is over here. So like your energy is not meant to live in only one physical container. It's just that that's the only mind concept that you guys, or I can tell when it's the guys because they're saying you guys can understand.
You guys, I know, I knew that too.
I'm like that. They're like, that's the only one that you guys can understand. They're like, you can't understand the idea of like, I can live in here and I can live in here and I can live in here.
So, asking you some more questions about that then. Okay. So, and this sort of ties in with dreaming and travel and having people visit us. Because I know, like, for a little while, right after my dad died, he visited a lot. He doesn't visit that much anymore, but I remember the day after I found out he was gone, he took me to where he was at that moment. Just right in that moment. And I remember it like it was watching television. It wasn't like, and I knew when this was happening, it wasn't a dream. And he looked really youthful and he was dancing in a way that he's never danced in his life. And the colors were so vibrant. And I was like, oh, is this where he's chilling right now? This is wild.
Yeah.
So my question is, can other people visit us from where they are in our dreams?
Absolutely. Why not? I mean, it's not even the context of your dreams. I mean, I'm laughing because Spirit's making me laugh. They're like, it's funny how people have this quote, spiritual life, but even in their spiritual life, they want to deem it in the sense that, okay, my spirit guides can visit me from a different realm.
Right.
My spirit guides or my angels can come down into this way and they can help me. But let me put in the fact that a past loved one can do it and then it's impossible. It's like, how does that even make sense? Why are you like, they're like, that makes no sense. They're like, do you understand? Like they're kind of energetically one of the same. Yes, there's layers. Yes, your past loved ones aren't necessarily your guides. They're your helpers. But it's like, it's the same thing. So of course your past loved ones are going to want to come visit you. That's why I said, I don't like the idea of a separation between our realms and dimensions. We talk a lot about, even in meditation or astral projecting about this idea of a veil, right? There's a veil between my light, my world and the spiritual world or the spiritual realm. Absolutely not. There is no veil. The veil that you have is the veil that you choose to have. The veil that you have is the only veil that you've chosen to have in your own sense of like, I can't see beyond. I can't quote, see the other side, or I can't feel the other side. I love that Spirit's like, you feel the other side every freaking day when you go outside and let's say you take a nature hike or you go out, like you are seeing the other side in so many ways. But again, you're putting in the context of this is the only way I can see it or understand it or interpret it. But there isn't a separation. There is.
Why do we do that?
I think that's a good question. I'm like, why do we do that? I like this where it's like the human mind's stubborn. They're like, you guys are stubborn. They're saying they're stubborn in the sense that they chosen to live and categorize their lives in so much so that that's part of your spiritual awakening. That's part of your spiritual growth, is to realize, like, get rid of the categories and come into that state of oneness, that state where you realize, like, we're all my oneness with the spiritual world, my oneness with nature, my oneness. Like, that's the whole point of you guys evolving and growing. And that's why we talk about the sense of the dying of your ego, the dying of yourself. It's because that sense of your little context of I have to fit into this box is very much your ego. And so you have to die of it in that way in order to understand your connection all. But it's so much easier when you do understand it. Like, it's so much easier when you can say like I know I sound crazy because Spirit's making me hear what I
you don't actually.
When I'm like, oh, my grandfather's standing downstairs, or my, my aunt talks a lot about My aunt's she's very clairvoyant. And she'll call me and say, I had morning coffee with Auntie Dora today who passed, or I had
Mm-hmm.
morning coffee with
Mm-hmm.
my, guess who was in the kitchen today. It's such a different life when you have this concept of not a separation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said, I think it's funny that even in, and it's weird, it's so true that it's funny that even in the way that we try to interpret the spiritual realm, we still create a separation in it. And there isn't a separation in it. They're like, you guys are still putting the separation there in order to help you understand. They're like, but once you take it away, it changes the game. If you look at the fact we talk so much about our ancestors and we talk so much about indigenous, there wasn't a separation. No indigenous culture believed in the separation between spiritual world and their world. There was none. It was just, they had a pure respect because of the oneness of it.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know what, you said something that made me come back to our conversation last week or the week before when we were talking about the higher self and why I don't like that term. I think what you're explaining right now is how I feel ourselves being. And that's what what you're talking about, I think of as this is the oneness of things. So when I thought of higher self, for me, it felt like separation.
Right.
And so now I realize that's why I get triggered by that.
You really did make me think, which I've been rewording myself on the wholeness versus higher self. Like because people are saying like, I'm going to help you step into your higher self. Or I'm going to help. I like the idea of I'm going to help you to step into your wholeness. And
because what you were just talking about is like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Like that's what I think I'm, trying to embrace, on a daily basis. And, some days it's a struggle and some days I feel connected, but that's just all part of the journey. But that oneness between things I think is so powerful, which is why I like nature. And I like being in nature, even though I'm a city person. There are times that I need to just step on that grass or look at trees. Like I see trees talking to each other the way that they lean across the street to each other to try to touch, because I don't, whether they're talking or a tree is sick. I have started to really notice that just as I'm going through the day. And I think it's really beautiful to behold.
It is. And it's so funny because they're like, I'm listening to the guys because you're bringing this on and you're talking and they're like, yeah, again, with the separation, they're like, only because in my head, I'm thinking this, they're like, it's funny how somebody will talk about, I talk to my plants. I play music for my plants. I do these things for my plants because it's been proven. It's actually been scientifically proven that this works, right? They're like, take the theory of the good apple and the bad apple, right? You speak negative to this apple, it's going to die faster, but you speak positive to this apple, it's not. And they're like, so energy has been shown in a sense, like that this is the way, but there, once again, we try to make it where it's not real. Like is, and it's like, but it's been proven. Like this is the way that it's been shown. It's funny because yesterday I have plants that I have been trying to grow. Like I've been trying to grow. And so I realized like I'm on plant TikTok now. Like all my videos are on plants, but my plants are growing. But you remember, did you ever see that TikTok where people were standing by trees and they're like, if you can hear me, touch me?
No, and the trees touch?
And the trees touch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, trees talk to us. I mean, we can have conversations with trees.
And they were like, oh, and then the tree touches them and everybody's like, that's not real. Like, that not happen. Anyways, I talk to my plants all the time, but I was playing with them. I'm like, can you touch me? Can you hear me and touch me? My plant did not touch me. But,
I did a tree meditation with people when I was on a retreat. I was teaching part of a retreat a few weeks ago, and I had everybody, we were outside. It was cold too. It was freezing, but I had everybody do a tree meditation, but they had to ask permission to approach their tree. And there were some folks who said that when they asked their tree for permission to be touched, the tree said no, they didn't want to be touched. And I actually felt that from the tree that I was standing next to as I was giving the instruction for the meditation. I was like, this tree is actually telling me it does not want to be touched right now. By me, maybe by somebody else, but by me, it didn't want to be touched.
Interesting.
And there was one person who said her tree told her that it was scared and it was afraid because something had happened and it didn't want it to happen again. She found out hours later that they'd burned a whole fire on that land and burned everything down to the ground.
That's crazy. I believe that. Like when I studied theta, we had to talk to,
So tell people what theta healing is.
It's funny because you're not even supposed to talk about theta. Like it's weird.
Oh, okay.
No, I can talk about it. I don't care. I just say it in the sense that they're like, the reason, like, how do you guys say this? Oh my God, I'm like, listen to my guides. The reason that you will hear me defined as I'll be an energy healer, right? I talk about energy healer. I don't necessarily say I'm a Reiki practitioner because I've studied so many forms of healing. The theta healing technique, it's copyrighted in the sense that you can't list it. Like I can never list it as theta healing technique unless I only solely do theta healing.
Okay.
So which I think is so dumb because it's a really powerful practice. I do believe in it. So it has a lot to do with, in a really basic terms, as basic as I can, it has a lot to do with subconscious or reprogramming, right? Reprogramming your subconscious. And theta healing was founded by Viana Stiebel, if I said that right. She's the founder of theta healing.
Okay.
And so basically it is the same in the sense that it's about like connecting to the divine, connecting to creator, however it is, and getting you into the state of your theta, your brain waves, right? You have your different forms of brain waves. So moving you into a state of theta. And as you're in theta, you can reprogram some of these beliefs in your unconscious mind. So that's pretty much in a very basic term what it is. So there's ways and there's techniques in order to kind of see what these beliefs are. And there's ways and techniques to reprogram them. So if you're reprogramming a belief, it means that if I remove a belief, I have to feel that energy with a new belief. So it's like, and there's a way that you're supposed to talk, like, muscle test to find what beliefs you have. Like, do I believe, this? Do I believe that? And then reprogram in this sense. I use theta all the time because I reprogram people's subconscious all the time. If I'm doing a healing and spirit's like, they're carrying this belief as this, and they're like, change it. I'm like, okay, can I change it? Yes. All right. Then let's reprogramming it, right? Your beliefs of worth. How many people have worth issues, right?
Right.
They're not worthy, or they believe, they're going to fail of this, or they believe that. Well, you can reprogram that. And the whole thought process between this, and I always tell people, is that we try to make changes in our body, but as you make these changes, and even in your beliefs, everything carries an energy. And sometimes you struggle with changing your thoughts or your beliefs because you don't know the energy that you're introducing.
Okay.
So if you can allow yourself to attach to that energy, it helps to make those changes faster.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So when I first did theta healing, like I said, it's a lot of muscle testing. I had a client, I remember this is way back when I first started healing. I was like, I'm just going to really focus on theta because I just come out of the class. And it was an old friend from high school, but she's a client. And I remember her having love issues. Like she just couldn't find her soulmate. She wanted to have her soulmate. So we did all these beliefs testing. You do all this muscle testing on, do you believe this in a soulmate? Do you believe this in a soulmate? I'm moving my hands right now because it's part of muscle testing. Like, do you believe this? Till I found like, okay, this is her belief. This is her belief. This is her belief. And then I reprogrammed them all. Within a month, she met her soulmate.
Wow.
And like, she was like, oh my gosh, like you changed it. So I say all of that because it's just reprogramming of your subconscious mind. That's basically theta.
Wow.
But it's pretty powerful. I like it. I mean, their beliefs and the way that they do it is it's cool. But I also do it in Reiki. If you studied Reiki in the way that I did. So in the way that I studied Reiki, my Reiki master talked a lot about like things that theta talked about. It talked a lot about soul fragments and calling back your power. It talked about a lot of like, ancestral healing. So there's a lot in theta that was just mixed with what I learned in Reiki.
Yeah.
But
I did a light activation by Brett Brevell around energy this was even before my Reiki.
I was like, aren't you Reiki? Aren't you?
Yeah, I am Reiki. Yeah, I am Reiki too as well.
Yeah. So I think, the thing is that the only thing that I say with theta or with any energy practice is don't get caught up in one way. And I think that's the main thing is like, people are like, oh, I think I want to do healing. I don't know what I want to do. I think that we all we all hold a different modality within us. And I think it's finding how you want to express that modality. And I think that's the beauty of the sense that like my energy healings are going to be different than your energy healings and vice versa. And sometimes you may need mine and sometimes you may need yours. So there's no competition in it, but don't get caught up in one way. If somebody's like, I can only use this way. No, like I've studied breath works and sometimes my sessions include breath works. Like, so mixing it up and allowing your library to span, but there's no better way.
Yeah, I think that goes for everything, right? I think that goes back to what you were saying about the wholeness and oneness of things. Like, I don't just practice yoga. And I feel like if I were a yoga teacher and only did yoga, that's a really myopic approach to teaching that modality.
Yeah.
I like to spin. I like to lift. I like to walk. I like to box. I like to do different things because all of those things bring something to everything that I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Any other thing about energy healing? I have no idea. I know we're talking about it.
No.
You're like, no.
I'm like, no, I feel like I like what you said. I feel like that covered it.
Yeah. I don't even know like if people understand what it is. I mean, what do you think energy healing is?
I think it's when we connect with our own energy and the energy of the universe. When we find those separations or blockages inside our body that are taking us out of alignment, which can cause illness or disease or whatever, and finding ways to get that energy back into balance. Yoga, we talk about prana. Traditional Chinese medicine, we're talking about qi. And there are different ways and different practices that help bring that qi or prana or energy back into a balanced state. Yeah. I like to practice stuff preventatively rather than when I'm sick. I feel like that is helpful. Because if you are feeling sick, it does require some more concentrated work. But it's said, like with Reiki, once you're sort of attuned to Reiki, it's always happening with what you're doing. So it's not like you have to say, I am doing Reiki as I do this. It's always sort of moving through you, as long as you're acknowledging it.
And I want to just say this because I don't even know if people understand. Maybe they're listening. They're like, we don't really understand what Reiki is, right? Like I said, I call what I do energy healing because it's a mix of different energy modalities. But a Reiki practitioner is somebody that has studied Reiki and they're able to practice on other people. And there's different levels of Reiki. So I always tell people, like, if you are like, I don't necessarily know if I want to heal people or work on people, I definitely encourage everyone at least to take a Reiki level 1 class where you learn how to work on yourself and heal yourself. Because you can work on animals, you can work on plants, you can put the energy in different things, and you can work on yourself. So I think it's really a powerful practice for anyone. Just like I tell every parent, look, if you want to be a parent, take a child development 101 class. Like it'll just make your parenting game different. But I want to back up and just talk to the people that are listening in the sense that Reiki, if you're listening and you're like, I don't know what Reiki is. Reiki, the one specifically I do is Usui Reiki, which originated from Japan. Are you Usui too? Because you're a Mel, right? Yeah. So the word Reiki itself is...
Oh, I didn't do it with Mel. I did it with actually a teacher.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay.
Yeah, no.
So the word Reiki is 2 words, right? You have Rei, which is universal or spiritual, and then you have Ki or Chi, which you also know as your Chi, which meaning life force energy. And that's the energy that's all around you. That's the energy that flows through everything, all living beings, and it's in everything. That's kind of what we're talking about, where there isn't a separation between the two. So if you're going to a Reiki practitioner, I tell people that are listening to this, if you're going to a Reiki practitioner, and you can do it in a distance, all my sessions are distance through Zoom, but in person, they utilize their hands, right? They transfer that healing energy, that life force energy around them, and then bring it through you. They channel that energy through you, like you said, to remove blockages, to open up your chakras, I always say to bring into your higher alignment to help balance that harmony on physical, emotional.
Balance. Yes. Balance is a big part. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool. Like, I have to be honest, because you're going to, like, my clients are like, oh, we get tingly. Oh, we see colors. Oh, we do this, but also can help with pain. Reiki is very powerful in pain management. So cancer patients, AIDS patients, any patients that are suffering. It can be very, very, they've brought it into hospitals. Some hospitals.
Oh yeah. Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital in New York has a whole holistic building where
That's
they do
awesome.
Reiki, acupuncture, yoga. I mean,
Yeah.
and massage, all these modalities
I love that.
covered by insurance, you know?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cool. But here's the thing with Reiki. Gotta love some spiritual TikTok. You guys have to understand that, and I know you guys might be like, that sounds kind of weird, but in order to do Reiki, you have to be attuned to Reiki. So there's a very much of a sacredness in it. So don't go Google up your Reiki symbols and then be like, I can do Reiki. But you have to be attuned to the energy, and you have to like, it's an attunement. I say this because I feel that people are like, I watched videos and therefore now I can do Reiki. And it's like, does not work like that. I do think though that everybody's able to channel life force energy though, regardless of Reiki.
Yes. Yes.
So
absolutely.
So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to cover what that was in case anybody was like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Yeah.
All right, cool.
There was a show I wanted to say, have you seen the Netflix show Watch Behind Her Eyes?
No, what's that?
Or I think it's called Behind Her Eyes, not Watch, but Behind Her Eyes.
No.
Oh, you need to go watch it. It's on Netflix. And it's
What's it
about the idea. Okay, I'm going to sum this up without killing the show. It's about astral projection. So it's an astral projection show. It's about a couple that's in love. It's a whole thing. And the girl practices astral projection. So she teaches other people how to astral project. And there's a whole body swapping that happens because of it.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay.
I don't want to ruin it.
Okay, I can't wait.
I don't want to ruin it, but I watched that and I was just like, my daughter, she's 18, she was watching it with me, and she, at the end of this, because it's like a limited, series. I hope they bring a second part to it, but she was freaking out. We just both were like, no way at the ending. But it talks about the idea of being able to swap bodies during astral projection, and actually talks about how to astral project.
Wow.
It's pretty legit. Like when you watch it, you'll be like, oh my gosh, like I get this, but it's trippy. So you guys, we talked about astral traveling, and I want to say this because I think the listeners will find it interesting. We talked about astral traveling, which is the idea of your consciousness separating from your physical body, and astral projection is that same idea, but with the awareness that you're actually doing it while awake, right? You talked about how when you were in high school, you wanted to play with it. And that's what it is. And a lot of people talk about the idea of like, I'm going to go meditate, or I'm going to do whatever I can, and then separate my consciousness and float around. I kind of teach that in some sense when I tell people to practice their clairvoyancy. I don't necessarily teach them to well, the guys are laughing at me and they're saying, yes, you do. Because I actually tell people, like, I want you to sit in a room, sit down, and just close your eyes. Take a second. And then I want you to allow yourself to peek into the next room. So if there's people in the next room, even better. So allowing yourself to go into the next room and say, like, where's everything at? What are they doing? What are they talking? What are they doing? And that's an idea of an astral projecting, right? You start little before you travel big, and then projecting your energy into the other area, which as an energy healer, we do quite often during distance healings, when we're clearing houses from distances, I cleared land from a distance. It's the idea that I'm able to project myself. I know it weirds people out because they're like, how do you know what my house looks like? And I'm like,
I actually tested it when I wanted to know, am I really doing this? I took myself outside in the middle of the night to go look at this garbage can that was on the corner. And I wanted to see something. And then I woke up the next morning, and then I went there, and the thing that was on the ground was actually on the ground. Yeah.
It's so crazy. I love that guides are saying right now, they're like, this is what we mean where there's not a separation between your energies. This is what we mean when you understand that if you allow yourself to look outside of the physical confinement of your body, that you're actually able to do this and a lot more. Like they're like, that's no different than you traveling upwards. You're just traveling outwards. You can choose to travel upwards, right? And then be going upwards and seeing what's going on up above you or around you, whatever you want to call it, realms or dimensions. You're allowing yourself to see outside of your physical mindset. I don't know. I'm kind of laughing at myself because I'm just thinking of how many people are like, that's crazy. Like, is that real? Like, what if I'm not really seeing what if I'm seeing what I'm seeing isn't real? Like I hear that so often. What if I see what I'm seeing isn't real? I'm like, what if it is?
What if it is?
Like, what if it is real? Play with that concept. What if what
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing is actually real?
We're so quick to want to tell ourselves that what we believe is not real and true.
I'm laughing because I'm like, we can go into the whole religion talk, and it's like, no, but we'll quickly believe that some man can just do some random, healing by the touching of his garments. Like,
Right.
do you guys believe that?
Mm-hmm.
So why is it why can some man, some random guy do that was not any less human than you, and you can't do it? They're like,
Right.
that's the whole concept of the Bible. They're like, it wasn't the fact of, I don't want to go down this Ryan, but I know the guys are saying it. They're like, that was the whole concept of like, let me show you what's actually possible for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
we're more powerful than we think.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to say? This was kind of an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I know. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Anything? Yeah. Okay, we're good, guys. Good. All right.
All right.
I'd be interested, you guys, in the box, if you guys are listening to this podcast on Spotify or even on the other ones, there's a review button. Go click review, put your little things up there. We love reading your messages and just seeing what you think about our episodes. Or ask questions if you have any.
Okay. Yeah, if you have show topic ideas.
Yeah. All right. We will talk to you later. Bye.